Hello, Jackie Simmons here of the Daisy Hypnotherapy Clinic. Welcome to my first video. I'm going to tell you a bit of a story actually, just to introduce a little bit of how I work and what I do in my hypnotherapy practice. Now, a few weeks ago, while at a mind and body show, I took an initial consultation from a lady. And when I asked her if she had anything else she'd like to share with me, she began to tell me how she had an autoimmune condition known as Myasthenia Gravis. Much to her surprise, I also have that condition, and whilst I am in remission, I have been for many years. Now, Myasthenia Gravis is an autoimmune condition that affects the signals that basically come from your brain to your muscles. And by producing antibodies that attack the muscle receptors. It's incredibly rare. In fact, it probably, I think statistically it's around 20 in 100,000 worldwide. So on meeting me, my client was extremely emotional because she is quite early days with her myasthenia and is still very ill. It affects your muscles, therefore you become very weak, and the more you do, the more exertion, the more weaker you become, and you have to rest basically, and medication, so forth. More on that at a later stage, but I want to explain to you how this affected or impacted upon myself. So I am very well, and I arranged to meet with the said lady at a later date because obviously I was actually working. I was busy that day seeing other clients, and we arranged to meet over coffee and to discuss basically, because she wanted to know how I had become so well, what I had to do and so forth. So we met at the said time and we discussed, and we had a very similar earlier history, if you like, that we were told that it was, both of us had been told it was, we were making it up. We've both been sent to see psychiatrists. Our families thought that we were making it up, and it was quite distressing, in short. I won't go into more detail because I will at a later stage when I write some more about this in my forthcoming book. However, you know, for me it was quite an emotional day actually, because when I am well, but to discuss such a very emotional, which had been a very emotional time for me, and I had been very, very ill with it. In fact, there were times when I couldn't walk from my kitchen to my living room, and I couldn't brush my hair. I was nursing at the time, so I couldn't even lift my arms to lift my hair to put it in a bun for work. Anyway, so how did this affect me? When we look at the brain, we have in my logical, conscious part of my brain, my solution focused part, I was very aware that I'm well, and that we were just merely discussing. However, my primitive brain, which is just seated right behind, or the ears just behind there, also known as the amygdala, was going into some sort of fear response due to the fact that it was feeding into my obvious distress at reliving some of my memories. Now, it's important to remember that our primitive mind is unable to tell the difference between reality and imagination. Now, while I was just merely discussing, it had tapped into, oh, well, this is what you do at that time. And there was obviously, understandably, a lot of fear around at that time. So yes, it reminded me of how powerful our mind is. We have to look at it that the primitive mind will take over if we allow it to. Okay, so as my anxiety was going up, and it was discussing such a very personal and emotional time for me, um, my conscious mind, my rational mind, was beginning to sort of like whimper out, and my primitive mind was taking over, feeding me lots of fear-based propaganda. Um, and so by the time I left this particular lady, we all left on, you know, it was good to meet her, and we've arranged to do so again, and hopefully I've been of support, and she knows that she will become well. um, I, on the other hand, was feeling incredibly anxious, and having discussed some of these, yes. So what did I do? Okay, well, I had to really work and pull myself back in, rein the primitive mind in, which was by this time really going to town. I have surgery booked, and so I, something prior to meeting this lady, I'd been quite confident about, because of my myasthenia. Although I'm in remission, I still have to have the procedure, which is relatively minor, but nevertheless would normally be done under a general anaesthetic. I, on the other hand, are going to have it under local. Now, prior to meeting this lady, I felt quite good. After meeting this lady and my primitive mind stepping in to, basically, with the propaganda of how ill I was going to be, and blah 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 blah, I felt pretty scared, actually. And of course, what does fear does? Fear will increase our anxiety, and I had to sort of really work hard to remember my own, I work on myself with my own technique, and remember that actually I had a choice. And I had a choice. Do I focus on how I used to feel? Because I'm not that person anymore. I'm well, I run a successful business, I'm many people, and I have many roles in my life, and I'm not that person. So I have to focus on what I do have and the positives. And so, yeah, so I'm now feeling quite confident. I did have to reschedule my appointment for my surgery, which is now booked for next week. And to actually to show you how I'm going to deal with this, I'm going to do a before and after video, and I'm going to use a mixture of self-hypnosis, guided visualization, and I'm going to reframe some of the, you know, the possible scenarios in my mind, so that by the time I am due for my surgery, I'm going to be in a calm, relaxed state.